I'm Corbitt with DVAuction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, July the 21st, brought to you in part by Macrocin by Bimeda. Pay for what you need, not for what you don't. Keep your cash, don't wait on rebates, and get the same results with Macrocin. For more information, go to macrocin.com. Also, Joplin Regional Stockyards in Carthage, Missouri. Another big run for them for the regular Monday feeder cattle sale. They are expecting around 6,000 head. They'll be selling cattle by 6 o'clock in the morning. They've got 40 loads of yearlings at least, even though they're for sure that they know they're there. Next Thursday, July the 31st, they're going to be having a special cow and bull sale, one of those 4:30 in the afternoon starts there. As we're all thinking about Bailey Moore, one of the owners and operators there, when you see Bailey, he's always jovial and in a good mood and got a smile on his face and fun to be around. But tell you what, for a young man, he's fought a lot of health battles, and he's having a heart procedure here on Monday, and we wish him the very best. Saturday trade. What are we talking about, a Saturday trade? Why do we have to trade fat cattle on Saturday? Seemed like just a couple of weeks ago, when we had the 4th of July holiday there, and your packers were trying to use that 4th of July short schedule as a stumbling block to help get ahead of the trade. They were telling everybody, oh, well, they don't need any cattle. Don't need any cattle. We don't need no cattle all the way through July. Got all the cattle we need. No problem. We're set up in good shape. And then they used that holiday shortened schedule, and they did get a little bit of leverage back in the market, only for 1 week, and then they had to give it back to the cattle feeders because supplies are so short. But here this past week, they didn't get all the cattle traded. They were trying to work the market lower, and the board had been friendly most of the week, and they tried that right up till late Friday to work the market lower, and then they jerked the steady bids like they didn't need any cattle and all this kind of stuff. Then Saturday morning, they still needed some cattle. They're trading on Saturday morning. That never happens. But they were trading cattle. I heard of cattle sell out of Colorado to a regional Saturday morning at $245. That would be pretty smoky, especially compared to last week's trade, which never got to that level. I heard a major buying cattle on Saturday morning. As soon as the buyer hung up the phone, 2 minutes later, the scheduler calls them wanting to know how early they could get them in on Monday. Those regional cattle, they scheduled those on Monday also. They are right up close to the knife. Don't let them lie to you guys. You can always tell when the packer's lying because his lips will be moving. So that's the way you tell. They're always acting like they don't need any cattle. You know, we never need any cattle. It's funny, whenever you slaughter cattle for a living, you never need any cattle. And I know it's tough times and these prices are smoky high and it's hard for them to keep their dressed beef costs up. But demand is still good. You still can't get a seat in the Texas Roadhouse. You know, the hamburger meat still sells good. Everybody loves their beef so far. I mean, we're probably pushing the levels to that. But these packers, you know, they're the ones that come up with this game. It hasn't been 30 years ago. They were still selling most all the fed cattle in a negotiated manner. And they would negotiate on them and come to a price like that. But your packers didn't want that. They wanted all these corporate partners of theirs, the corporate feeders, to be in some kind of a sweetheart formula deal. So they got them all in there. And then that wasn't quite that wasn't quite enough. Then they had to get the big family feeding organizations. They got all them in there now. And then basically anybody that was big enough to get any kind of leverage on them, they got them in some kind of a sweetheart or a grid-based deal. And they do end up giving them a little bit more than the base price most of the time because cattle are so much better now than they were. So that's costing them money. But they still need to trade for about 20% of the cattle. Not because Texas still sells negotiated. They don't sell enough to wad a shotgun. Kansas is not much better. But Nebraska and Iowa still sell a lot of cattle negotiated because it's independent farmer feeders. They want to negotiate. They want to be able to get more money when they deserve it. And so, you know, the packers are the ones that come up with this deal. If it's not working out for them, since they're in extremely tight supplies, you know, I'm sorry. But there's lots of times that it doesn't work out for the cattle feeder. Lots more times. And, you know, these cattle feeders, there were years and years that there was no way to scratch out any kind of profit on feeding cattle unless it was in some kind of a risk management scheme of some time, using commodities that didn't even have anything to do with cattle to kind of offset your risk. That was the only way. Now we've seen a couple, 3 years here where all your cattle people are getting impressive profits. Your cattle feeders, your backgrounders, your cow-calf people finally, and your packers aren't liking it that much. You know, they may not be able to post record profits this year. They did that during the pandemic when they was taking advantage of everybody. But you know, it's going to be lean here for a few years. But you guys come up with this game. If you don't like the rules of the game now, it's your fault. Let's look at your board last week. August live cattle futures Monday was down 285, and everybody thought the world was coming to an end. But then it comes roaring back, just like it has every time in the last couple, 3 years here. Tuesday was up 305, Wednesday up $1.50, Thursday down 22, and Friday down 12 cents, with August live cattle ending the week at 223.55, up $1.35 for the week. October ended the week at 219.85, up just 12 cents. August feeder cattle, after that big gangbusters day on Friday when the board was up so much and I thought it would be down, then on Monday, sure enough, it was down big, down 585, kind of getting close to those expanded limits. Tuesday was up 280, but it got some of that back. And Wednesday up 330. Now you're getting most all of it back. Thursday was down 57, and Friday down $1, with August feeder cattle ending the week at 324 smooth. That was down 132 for the week still. September ended the week at 324.20, down $1.20. So you got your feeder cattle board down over $1, $1.20, $1.30. Your cash feeder cattle sales were $5 to $15 higher. And your live cattle, you know, it ended the week at for an August contract at 223.5, and your fat cattle trade last week was nearly 236. So that's kind of how out of whack everything is here, guys. You look at your corn, December corn, they stay pretty true because your cash corn usually sells off the board there at 427 3/4. That was up 15.5 cents a bushel. November beans new crop 1035 3/4, up 28.5 cents a bushel. And hard red winter wheat for September ended the week at 529, up 4 3/4. Fat cattle trade last week, up through Thursday, they had sold 24,300 head is all. That's not near enough to satisfy their needs. Fat steers and heifers in your 5-area feeding region negotiated, sold from 225 to 242. That was absolutely steady. But your weighted average on live steers, 235.91, was down about $1.30 compared to last week's weighted average. Dress sales 376 to 380, mostly steady. And dress steers had a weighted average of 379.32, which was actually up 11 cents. But as a whole, Northern Plains sold most of the cattle on that light movement, 238 to 242. That was $1 to $3 higher. Your dress sales 376 to 380, mostly steady. Southern Plains traded 230 with an end at 231, which was steady to $2 higher. But on Friday is when we saw more trade, and that wasn't included in what I just give you. On Friday, Iowa sold 6,300 head, 11,700 for the week. Live sales 238 to 241, towards the top of that range from the first 4 days of the week. Dress sales 376 to 382. 382, hadn't seen much of that until Friday. Nebraska 4,500 on Friday, 15,200 for the week. Live sales 240 to 242, right at the top of the range. And dress sales 376 to 382. So your weighted average after we get the whole weeks rounded up is going to be a little bit better than what I just gave you a few minutes ago. Kansas sold 1,000 on Friday, 6,900 for the week. Live sales is 230 is all. Texas sold 400, 2,700 for the week, all at 230. But like I said, we're going to see some late Friday trade that's not included in that. We're going to see some Saturday morning trade that wasn't included when we get the roundup at the end of the day on Monday, and I'll give it to you on our next visit. Box beef cutout values were down hard, really hard. And that's one reason the packers were scrambling last week and trying to get a hold of the market. All of your sales of choice box beef cutouts last week had a weighted average of 374.89, down 11.86 compared to the previous week's weighted average. And late Friday sales were over $1 lower than that at 373.55. Select sales, last week's sales had a weighted average of 358.08, down 15.24. And your late Friday sales were another $6.50 cheaper than that on selects at 351.49. That choice select spread on the weighted average was 16.81, and pretty good movement of 637 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings on the spot trade. Slaughter, last week's slaughter estimated kill at 563,000 cattle. That's 5,000 less than the previous week, 26,000 less than the same week a year ago. So they continue to slash the slaughter, and when they get short and close to the knife, they're really short because they don't have any backlog of product. Talk about your feeder cattle market. Your real-time index brought to you by Specialty Risk Insurance. They're working to protect your livelihood, guys. Your RTI ended the week at 325.60. That was up $5.59 for the week. Cash feeder sales on your real-time index. Your CME feeder cattle index ended the week at 322.28. All classes of calves and yearlings in your auctions last week had a trend of $5 to $15 higher. I mean, the guys are just pushing. There's not a lot of cattle. There's a lot of cattle selling forward contract right now. A lot of cattle has been selling on the videos, but not a lot of cattle you can get your hands on immediately trading. And whenever we see them, and if the quality is good, they're bringing big money, guys. These cheap cost of gains, corn is really getting down there, especially for an independent farmer feeder. They can save so much money feeding their own corn, and those cost of gains are going to be really cheap, and they're not going to make much money on their row crops, so they have to find a way to make some money somehow. And even your cost of gains on pasture, any kind of forage, we've got excellent crop and pasture conditions in most of the country. There's some places out west that aren't good, but through the big mid-third of the country where most of your cattle are raised, it's excellent. There's nowhere you go that doesn't look excellent. And so everybody's really excited to turn cattle out and to feed and background cattle. So it's been pretty good. Talk about one of your big sales there, Bluegrass Stockyards in Richmond. Now, there wasn't a lot of big sales late last week or over the weekend, but the ones that they did have were very impressive there. And at Richmond, that's Jim Doss's sale, and he does such a good job. I tell you what, that is your Superior Steel Sales, home of Superior Standard livestock handling equipment. Stick out sale of the day. And you look at the Richmond sale they have, I mean, just right off the square there in downtown Richmond, Kentucky. And look at these loads of steers that I pulled out of Cattle Market Central. This is so impressive. Loads of steers in a Kentucky sale barn there. They had 983 to 1,000 pound loads of steers, bring $3. Some weigh 9 1/4 at $3.15, some weigh 942 at $3.06. Load weighs 856 at $324.90, and they also have our top quote for the day. Congratulations to Bluegrass of Richmond. Look at some other in particular sales that had impressive quotes all over the circuit. How about Payne County Stockyards in Perkins, Oklahoma? They're a DV auction broadcaster. They do a good job. They sold 52 steers, weighed 619 pounds at $388. That's awfully good quote. A sale barn that we haven't been getting information out of, but we are going to be getting information, automated information through Cattle Market Central going forward. We got that straightened out. Is Manhattan Commission Company, John Klein there in Manhattan, Kansas. They've always had a good sale there. And late this last week, they sold 74 steers, weighed 690 at $379. Wow. How about Bluegrass Stockyards in Campbellsville? They excited us earlier this week with their loads of yearlings there. And then on Saturday, they had a Holstein steer special, and it was a smoker also. Campbellsville is the place to be, guys. They sold 75 Holstein steers, weighed 635 through the ring in Campbellsville. They bring $320 a pound. How about Lanesboro, Minnesota? Lanesboro Sales Commission, Joe Nelson there, they do a good job. They had a Holstein special also, and they sold Holstein steers, 54 of them. They weighed 721 at $336 up there in farmer feeder country, guys. But the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere late last week or over the weekend, and your Macrocin, no BS, top quote for the day, indeed come out of Bluegrass Stockyards in Richmond, Kentucky. It was 108 steers, weighed 921, bring $322.25. And that's your feeder flash for Monday.